Welcome to What the Flick, everybody. It's Ben and John and Brett and Cenk. Battle of the Bastards, episode 9, season. Is it 6? It's 6, right?
6. Yes.
Season 6. So the penultimate episode, as frequently we've seen in many shows, but Game of Thrones predominantly they've relied. Not every year. They twisted it last year with the big episode was like in 5 or 6. The big battle.
Yeah.
Sort of they deliberately thought, it's coming in 9. Here it is in 5 or 6.
Well, and 9 was still big. I think that was Hard Home. I think that was a pretty good episode.
No, I'm not. I'm not disparaging 9. I'm just saying they deliberately
you have this
threw
beef against Hard Home.
but they gave it to us. That was that reminded me of 2 wars. I'm sure it did for many, but there was some civil war there that looked like Antietam, where people were Americans were bloody state in American history, where literally just piled on top. People died under other people. Mountains of dead people, and of course World War I, which was just nonsensical from start to finish.
There was a good bit of Braveheart to me in a couple of different ways. It felt like Braveheart.
There's an interview in Entertainment Weekly with the director who was like, I watched a lot of stuff. And it seemed like there were so many of those aerial.
One of the great things about you, among the many great things about you, is the energy and accent that you put on something that you read. I might have said, I said the director said he watched a lot of stuff. Or Brett's like, the director said, I watched a lot of stuff.
That's what it felt like.
Right.
He was like, and he watched everything. Kurosawa was like a big influence on him. But he said, you never really got that, both the scope of the battle and the personal experience of being in it very well. He's like, we went through this period of battle scenes where it's just like these big wide shots, but you never really understood the fact that horses are going to run into each other at full tilt because it used to be so CGI, or it used to be no CGI, and so if horses fell, if it during the pre-CGI moments, it was like if horses fell, you'd be like, oh, we need to edit that out because people will know that we're terrible to horses. And in the CGI stuff that they've done, it hasn't really felt as visceral as you wanted it to feel.
Well, specifically the whole cavalry charge thing, that's something that they haven't really shown in movies for the reasons that you said, but that lasted as the predominant military thing you do for 1,000 years for a reason. We saw it in Lord of the Rings, they had a lot of that, of just sweeping away groups of people, but it looks like nothing. It looks like rubber bowling pins. But in this, it was really much more visceral and real.
To both your points, you see it in John Ford movies. You see it in almost every great American Western.
I would have had to have watched one of those.
Well, you should watch some John Ford movies. That guy knew what he was doing. I'm Jack Ford, I make Westerns. But there's that inevitable moment where there's an edit right before, and then we get the aftermath. Yeah. And so you don't get the immense weight of the brutality and weight in every word where you got here, the weight of the brutality just from that endless shot of John where you didn't even know what was happening around him, but you knew it was awful.
Super fast. That's all that I want in movies is long staying shots on one person fighting a bunch of people in a row. There have been a lot of good ones. There was Kill Bill had a great one. There's Ong Bak, I think, has an amazing one. It was a Tony Jaa movie where it was literally he went up an entire tower in one shot. And this, they must have spent $1 million on this one shot, and it was so beautiful. First of all, it showed how random war is, that the only reason he didn't die is because of random chance. The arrows could have killed him, the horse could have killed him, somebody could have not stopped that night. But it shows how, him coming back from the dead, they showed in a couple ways that he's not the same person, and the way that he fights there, I think, is a good example of how changed he is from having already died and come back.
How?
Well, I mean, one thing is when he watches Rickon die, there's a great callback to a shot of Stannis from right before Stannis died. So Stannis sees that he's got literally 50 dudes, and Bolton's about to charge him, and he pulls out his sword and he charges them, and it's this last charge sort of thing for him. Jon does that where the cavalry's coming, he takes off his belt, he takes out his sword, he's like, whatever, I don't want to be here anyway. And so he just takes it out.
That's right. He's like, that's a suicide. That's suicide by cop. That was, I'm done. And then
suicide by sword, yeah.
Suicide by sword, yeah.
Okay, so you know me, I love the dialogue, I love the intrigue. So I'm less enthused about the battle scenes. Actually, with the hard home. Yeah, okay, good, God bless. But
This was better.
I'm like
different.
battle. I got it. There's a battle. I care about who's gonna win, right? I think this is a very, very notable exception.
Right. Good.
And there's a couple of lines of dialogue that I loved in this episode that I'll get back to in a second. But you guys all made great points. Let me just touch on a couple here. So you're right, and I hadn't even quite crystallized it until you said it. That cavalry charge of the Knights of the Vale and how they broke what appeared certainly with as they were trapped, an unbreakable line with the shields of the Boltons and the spears and you got a sense as they couldn't break it internally when they were in that circle, as Jon Snow's fighting men were in that circle. You got a sense of the doom, the impending doom. And these are your last minutes, and this is how you die, and this is how you lose a battle, right? And then when the cavalry comes in and knocks them over so easily, right? But real, couple of horses go fall, and you run into a shield, but the shield can't hold a horse, and you're like, oh, that's how it happens. It was a wonderful scene that gave you a sense of how a real battle goes. But that also, before the cavalry charge, as they're closing in and they can't break those shields, and every time they remove one of the shields, they get a spear. And it's closing in on you. You feel claustrophobic, which is what you're supposed to feel, which then goes along with the theme and the other part that I loved. Yeah, the fighting scenes are fun, but I've seen 1,000 fighting scenes. To me, the best scene was when he's buried in the rubble,
right.
In the pile of humanity, and
breathe.
And he can't breathe. And they played that sad music. I don't know if you guys noticed it, and I was like, oh my God, God damn it, is he gonna die?
I thought so too.
And that is why
I was like this.
And that is why Game of Thrones is leagues better than any other show, because there was a chance he was going to die there. In no
was
other
a good
show
chance.
I think
there would have been a 0% chance he was going to die in that battle. He's the goddamn hero of the story. We're in season 6.
Well, the only
We're
thing
not in season 1, right?
Yeah.
I disagree with you. Only
let me
in the
just
only in
finish.
the use of the word leagues, but I hear you.
Yeah. No, I really think it's an order of magnitude better.
Kilometers.
Because, I mean, Lord of the Rings is now unwatchable. Like, they have battle after battle where no one fucking
It was
dies.
already
There's no chance of-
unwatchable.
I will watch it. I will watch it 3 times
Okay, anyway.
to make up for you two.
Yeah, no, so and I was like, oh my God damn it, are they going to kill him again?
Yeah.
And is this over? And it looked there for like about 20 seconds.
They held it.
That it was over.
Yeah.
And what a crazy way to die. Instead of getting a glorious death of, oh my God, he gets the sword against this big guy or whatever, the most inglorious death of being trampled by your own men.
Who broke.
Right?
That they weren't brave. They broke.
I predict that this will give us, I hope it's not the Civil War, because we've gotten a little of that. Like, I would love to see Spielberg, I would love to see someone of note make a World War I movie, where we got this sort of piles of dead, like the unbelievable madness of that in the 20th century. Like in Civil War, even though they were only separated by 50 years, Civil War was a different era.
Yeah.
There was modern weaponry in the World War I and some degree of modern thinking, and yet they still those guys do that.
Yeah, specifically from a filmmaking perspective, the sad music plus what they were using, which was like a severe lower frame rate, like that very choppy, like 15
It would
frames
kind
a
of cut
second.
out to black for a
Cut
few-
out
for
to
a
black, and then the choppiness is something that Ridley Scott does, like in Gladiator, that is so cheesy to me. All those like crazy, and he does it in Robin Hood or whatever it was, like that same frame rate and the sad music, but it just seems going back so freaking cheesy to me, and it's not
Really?
when
But not, did you
I didn't feel
not
that
in this one. It's not. In this one, they managed to take those same moves and do it just so much better in a way that's like, oh, that's how you're supposed to do it, to show just how chaotic it is and how fractured your consciousness becomes.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being in this battle and you're this kind of fighter and thinking, wait, I'm going to suffocate to death?
There's an amazing
my own men's dying
over the
bodies.
head shot looking down when everyone's shoulder to shoulder, and like half of them are dead like that.
Well, there's
They're
also
they're
in
dead
that
standing up.
in that shot, it's literally like it's not just all his men. Like Tormund ends up fighting the Umber just because they're like this to each other, and they literally can't move.
Right, they can't even swing.
Which I love that, and also they showed. I always wondered watching like Braveheart. They send the peasants against each other, and there's a line, and then it's all mixed up. And they're all just dirty peasants covered in blood and mud. How the hell do you know who to
How
fight?
do you know who you're chopping in half?
Yeah, and there's a shot in that long scene of Jon where there are two guys fighting,
And then he
kills
kills
one, and then he kills the other,
Yeah,
because
totally.
they
That's
both
right.
could be Boltons. We don't even know.
But they probably weren't. He probably killed
Who the
one
hell
of his own
knows?
men.
He probably did. A
But
lot
we
of
did
it's probably
see at
that.
least some. We saw, obviously. I mean, when it's compared to Ramsay, it's easy. But we saw one sort of significant ethical difference is that Davos was like, no, we can't shoot in there. We'll just kill our own guys. And Ramsay's like, no, we're going to kill everybody. The whole point.
Straight out of Braveheart.
And so that goes ultimately to, I think I win the Ramsay is an idiot argument.
I
Why?
could not disagree more.
Why is Ramsay an idiot?
Okay, so let's just break it down one by one. First off, let me point out the things that I was wrong about. Number one, I thought for sure during the episode, I never said this on camera because I was wrong in the middle of the episode, that his men were going to turn on him because Jon Snow says, "Oh, but your men will know that you didn't fight for them."
Right.
And I thought they could have emphasized that even more. So, like, thousands of your men will die because you refuse to be a man and fight for them, right? And then I had the theory that I was wrong about on camera that Small John Umber was going to turn on Ramsay Bolton. That was 100% wrong. He did not at all. So I loved when Tormund killed him, and that was set up in that episode. Yes, they wound up next to each other. But in the battle, you saw Small John come in. I know that they did a head fake against Jon Snow for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I thought Tormund versus Small John was coming the whole way. That one did come, and it was a very satisfying ending. And then he fires arrows into his own men, Ramsay Bolton does, and the others. I thought they were going to do a breakaway, like because it fits with what Jon Snow had said, and to one of the guys in the back going, those are our guys too, right? And that somehow one of the themes would be he loses his men because he's such a bastard.
They should have had
right?
some dessert or something.
Yes, but they didn't do that. They didn't do that. So so it wasn't like it was. I think the Onion Knight being more decent, only slightly more strategic. Because if I was the Onion Knight, I'd have moved the guys with the arrows further in instead of charging with their swords. I'd have moved them further in to hit the guys in the back, right? The Bolton guys in the back, and you're still being plenty courageous because you're closer to the battle.
And they can shoot you.
They can shoot you, yada yada. But Ben, I mean, one of the themes of this episode was overconfidence. The overconfidence of the slavers against Daenerys, as usual, right? The overconfidence of Ramsay Bolton to some degree. But to be fair to him, he won the battle. No one could have seen the Knights of the Vale coming. I mean, that is being outplayed by Littlefinger, who was the big winner of this whole episode, which we'll get to
I got you.
later.
But what was significant was when they went back there, and we don't know because he died and was satisfyingly eaten by dogs. I guess satisfying, although
We'll debate. We'll talk
debate.
about that
So,
too.
but he says to one of his top generals, I don't remember which guy it was, Larry, I think. And he said,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Sir Larry.
So Barry Umber. It was Barry Umber.
No, it's Larry, but it's with an E instead of an A.
That's right. You know, and he mentions his army, and Larry says, "We don't have an army." Like he had blown it. Like he wasn't going to hold that long. They would have turned against him. Like it didn't happen in that battle, but he was done. I think he was totally done. He had miscalculated. He had, in his zest for, I don't think he's an idiot, right? I mean, but in his, what he liked best, he even liked getting beaten to a pulp by Jon. What he liked best was the cruelty, was the game playing. So I think he was done no matter what, because those guys, that guy was bitter.
Well,
Larry was bitter.
He won the battle in terms of, we see a pre-battle tense scene where everyone's like, all right, he's got to charge at us first. And Sansa's like, this guy's insane. And Ramsay wins the Jon charges at us first.
He got him to
Ramsay gets Jon
Yep.
in the middle of the field where, by definition, arrows can reach.
Right.
We're pretty
because
sure of
one
that.
just pierced the shit out of his little brother.
Right.
And then extras.
His
and
little
then-
brother, who was, by the way, I mean, I got it. It was a different era.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
Yes. Serpentine!
Serpentine.
The whole time I'm yelling, zigzag, zigzag.
He had the Prometheus problem. If a stone thing only this thick is rolling towards you, just step to the side. Don't
Also,
keep
when you
running
know
straight.
he's done it, he's released it. stop. It takes forever. Stop. Wait 5 seconds.
I would have
There you go.
backpedaled the whole way.
That's
Or
funny.
hide
I was
behind one of the
thinking, when
flame
I
things.
zigzag, I would run longer than expected in one direction and then really shorten in another direction. Just make it unpredictable.
Yeah.
Of course, right?
The
He
whole
was
point
really
of the
accurate.
arrows, it's got to predict where you're going.
And to Ramsay,
if you
like-
don't go
yeah.
there,
So-
it won't hit you.
So Ramsay should essentially be like, all right, 90 guys fire. Then
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
probably would have.
Yeah, and then, okay, one little, I mean, this is really nitpicking, but if you're that good with a bow and arrow, which he is, Ramsay Bolton, why not hit Jon Snow?
Yeah.
You know, number one, hit Jon Snow instead of the kid. 2, hit them both. Okay.
Not cruel enough.
Right. And 3,
Right, yeah.
remember when they're in the castle and he hits the giant in the eye, Ramsay Bolton does with the bow and arrow.
Yeah.
And they didn't see him at that point. That's part of the reason because they're looking at the giant. Hit Jon Snow in the head.
Yeah, I thought that
Hit
too.
Jon Snow in the head. He's much more important than the giant who's about to die anyway.
I think if you see a giant, I think you have to shoot the giant. It's really
Here's
Also,
the
big.
but
question.
Ramsay was
don't
was
know.
just in an effort to if he'd shot Jon Snow, he was still dead. Ramsay was still done,
Yeah.
and he knew.
Fair, fair.
Why,
But
here's another question. Why don't giants have swords?
Yeah.
Or a
Just
log.
give him something to hit people with, because
Give him
he's just
something.
like, nah.
Or a big shield.
Or-
Give him
Yeah,
some, you know.
Just a really
just
big
because he's
chain.
big, he found back armor.
Right.
Bones.
Yeah.
He can make a big.
Just take a bone.
Just take a tree.
And
Yeah.
Hold it
And
in
we've
front of
seen
you.
him use it hard home. He used it. This thing. One other strategy thing, and there's going to be. We have to talk about Sansa, who pissed me off in this episode. But one other strategy thing, like yes, he did lay the perfect trap, and Jon did go into it, and then Davos follows them. They totally fell into that trap. All of that was totally true. But if like you have this tense scene between the bastards, and I love how he keeps calling Jon a bastard. Dude, you're still a bastard too.
He's
They
being
say, okay,
legitimized.
Exactly, but sort of. Okay, tomorrow morning we fight. And then they go away, and then you start having all this next exposition. During that exposition, fucking attack them at night.
Oh, I thought
Don't
that,
wait until the
I
next
thought
morning.
Ramsay was going to attack at night.
Yeah,
I
the
know,
same
that's
way
what he
that
should have done.
infiltrated the
Yeah.
camp.
Why are you
and
waiting?
I thought John would wait. There's 2 things I want. So one, the obviously we saw tactically thoughtful and smart behavior and leadership from women, and boneheaded decision making from men. I mean, we're hitting this debate about Ramsay, but John's an idiot. John fell into the exact trap. John
That
fell into
Sansa was
Yeah.
like, I know him.
right.
He's gonna do something.
Totally, and it's exactly the thing that got us into World War I. The same sort of foolish sort of, oh yeah, really? I'm not gonna. I'll step to you, and what do you know? And then 22 million people die, and so the men were morons, fools, and the women were way more smart and thoughtful. Why
Well,
do you have,
not entirely. I mean, she has this showdown with him about, you don't listen to me. Why aren't you asking for my
Yeah.
opinion? I can help. She has one piece of information she needs to share.
Yeah,
and
she
she chooses
needs-
not to share it.
I don't
She
get it.
doesn't despise Sansa Stark. She's number 3 for me after Joffrey and Ramsay Bolton.
Okay, I don't have her that high, but
No, I dislike her more than I dislike Cersei. So I can't stand her stupidity, her arrogance combined with ignorance. It is unbearable to
Well,
me.
let's get
but
to-
you're right, Ben.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and
She was
and-
smart,
and-
but yeah, there's reasons to
Jon
hate her.
Snow not listening to her when she spent all this time with Ramsay Bolton, and he's like, "Oh, it's obvious, dude. There's nothing obvious about Ramsay Bolton." I would have sat down with Jon. Is not that smart. He's super brave, but he's kind of he's not stupid, but he's really not a strategist
not
at
a-
all.
no, he's
at
not,
all.
He's not a big thinker.
Yeah,
He's not a
I would
battle
have sat
commander, no.
Sansa down and I'd be like, "Tell me
Yeah.
everything you know about Ramsay Bolton." They should
she
have
had
told
the
you about the
opportunity.
hounds and the chasing down, and then that would have taught me, oh, he likes to play games, and the way he does it is he leads you into traps where you think you're winning, but you're actually losing.
And
Which,
that's
by the
what
way,
she's
tells me
starting.
Ramsay's
And that's
smart.
what that's
Yeah.
what what Sir Davos should have done. I mean, if you're the guy, you're like, hey, let's, because he clearly, he understood it better.
Yeah,
like
this
he was
jerk's-
watching. But what I also thought was super interesting was that sort of there was this classism at stake there. We saw, it was funny, the times that Tormund didn't know what either Davos
Pincer
or Jon
means.
was talking about, right? Pincer, or the other word they used for pincer, which I didn't know either.
Envelopment,
And there
I
was
think they might say.
right, envelope, right, move,
yeah, you put him in an envelope.
And there was another moment with Davos where he didn't know and they explained it. But the only person who said out loud, don't, when Jon was going to run, because it was Tormund, who was like, this is what he wants you to do.
Yeah.
Don't do
This
it. Like,
seems
like,
pretty
yeah, I don't know what
obvious to
pincer
me.
means, but I'm smart. And I
Yeah.
know you're not supposed to run after this.
Yeah.
Now, that's-
Yeah.
That was the point, John. Right.
Yeah, that was, and kudos to Sansa for just being like, Rincon's already dead. Like
Yeah,
that
that's
is
true.
Yeah,
that
she-
is
that-
we
yes.
have a new Sansa here, but I still, like, in the course of all the things that they set up in this show to tell you what characters are thinking and what they're likely to do, and even if it's unexpected at the time, you look back and say, oh, that's why I should have seen it coming. With Sansa, it's like, she takes the time to say, I know Ramsay, but not the time to say what she knows. And that's what's so frustrating about it. Like,
I think we're underestimating the degree to which, and it's true for almost everybody in the show, and this will be a small defense of her, but this was a woman who was essentially sold into sex slavery
by the dude.
And then raped 200 times. And so, yeah, what she wanted was what she wanted more than anything. Forget returning to Winterfell. She wanted that moment that she got at the end. She wanted revenge.
Yeah.
Right. But Jon knew
that's
she wanted
independent
revenge.
of whether she could reveal the most important information.
But like, so what does Jon know about Littlefinger that if she tells Jon about Littlefinger, that Jon's going to say like, oh, he's bad. It's like, oh no, isn't Littlefinger's the guy that sold you into slavery? Don't do that. I guess could be it. But other than that, it's like, he controls the Knights of the Vale. We need those people.
So
let's
talk about that for a second, right? So if she tells him, theoretically, this is not, so let me tell you the theory and then how it would actually. Theoretically, she could say, hey, Jon, the Knights of the Vale are around the other hill. So you know how we're going to fight in the morning? Let's wait till the afternoon. Yeah. Okay, they're going to get here in the afternoon. Let's wait then. And instead of all of you dying.
Yeah, that's what I said out loud.
What's that?
On the first light of the third day, look to the east.
Right.
It's from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Which we won't watch anymore.
Okay. I swear I watched like half an hour of Lord of the Rings. So I was like, what utter crap, and turn it off. Okay.
It's a different genre.
It's a different genre where it's totally uninteresting because no one dies. Other than all the bad guys who are so fearsome but die like that.
Gandalf was brought back just like Jon Snow.
Anyway, but of course Littlefinger, why he's the giant winner of this and why he's the smartest man on in the Seven Kingdoms, is if the battle was in the afternoon, he'd have showed up at night. And if it was at night, he'd have showed up the next day, because his whole point is for them to kill each other and have no armies left. Just like when they get into the castle and Larry says to Ramsay Bolton, Ramsay says they have no army left. He says, neither do we. Exactly.
Right.
He was probably watching over a hill.
What Littlefinger wanted to enter at the very goddamn end when all of your troops are dead and the only army that remains is Littlefinger's.
Like America in World War II.
And what does Sansa the moron do? Instead of telling her brother, and then they could strategize, and maybe they don't win that battle because Littlefinger probably has 8 plans after that to make sure he gets that result anyway, right? But at least you give him a fighting chance. Instead, she's like, okay, Littlefinger, let them all die first.
All she had to say
including
to Jon,
all my men, let all my men die first.
And almost Jon.
Then you go in.
Almost Jon, too.
All she had to do was say, let's not fight at breakfast. Let's do
9:30.
Let's do brunch.
I do think he was probably watching. He probably had scouts who were watching the flow of the battle and everything, I would imagine.
Of course. But look, Littlefinger wasn't going to get outplayed that day. He never gets outplayed. He might one day, and it might be a freakish accident, or he might, just like we were saying before, on a ladder of 29 things he's got to do to get to the top, he just might miss ladder number 27, right? But he was going to show up at the end no matter what. But Sansa could have given Jon Snow and those guys a fighting chance by letting them know about Littlefinger.
The question we're going to find out is that was Littlefinger there the night before? I mean, did Sansa know that night?
I hope not.
You know, because she's sitting on the hill with him.
And also, what did she offer to him?
Right.
Are they going to get married now?
Right. Did she promise him? Right. What does she promise him? You know, she can't deny.
I think she's so tough and smart. She still doesn't know a goddamn thing. She's still a child. I can't stand her, as you can tell.
Yeah. So let's look at the map now. The Starks have the North. What's left of them? And
There's like 5.
There's like 7 people in the entire North now. And the Boltons were in alliance with the Freys and the Lannisters to be wardens of the North, right? So now the Starks are in the North. Do the Lannisters just look at that and go like, all right, that's fine, I don't care?
Well, that looks like it's coming next week because the Lannisters and the Freys are together. And now you've got the much diminished, Starks, but there are the Knights of the Vale. So if you're the Lannisters, you think this is the time to march and take Winterfell again, right?
Yeah.
But
They have their own
which
problems.
then goes to why Davos is wrong. He's like, we've got to take Winterfell so we could be united when the
North
White
comes.
Walkers come. No, you just killed all of each other. So when the White Walkers come, there'll be a lot less of you. Instead, if the White Walkers had showed up, believe me, there would have been a couple of ravens to the south like, no, you guys don't understand. The fucking White Walkers are here. You all need to come and fight now.
That's happened,
Then
though.
we'll kill each other.
They better burn those mountains,
But we've
by the
already,
way.
Yeah.
but like,
I've already tried to tell the South that the White Walkers are coming, and it's failed.
but it's also, this is a
It's so
pointless
tough.
conversation. Like, an army of 18,000 or an army of 5,000, it's just going to take the White Walkers a little longer. Like, you need
Fire.
You need dragons. You need something. You need a weapon that they are unaware is available to them.
Because you're right. Because if you have an army of 18,000 or 5,000, the first 1,000 that died then joined their army.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Right.
second 1,000 joined their army.
It just takes 3 months instead of 1 month.
Everybody's armed with a sword and a torch, and as you die, you torch yourself. And then you don't come back. I think it's a great idea. Now, one other aspect that I think might possibly show up in this next episode, if they do, I know that they have to do cleanup on a lot of storylines. They might do cleanup on this one too. But we had Davos coming across. By the way, people always drop identifying things. We had the ring for Daenerys and the little horse statue. So he now knows that Shireen was sacrificed, or at least he suspects it.
Yeah.
It's a,
that
it's a stag, by the way, for
The stag, for the Baratheons, yeah.
Yes.
And then at the same time, I know that this is one of your favorite lines of the episode. We had the great interaction between Jon that was previewed the week before, of Jon and Melisandre, where he says, "If I die, don't bring me back," which is a great line. But they didn't show that her response is even better. She's like, "I don't care what you say. I'm bringing you back if I have to."
Yeah.
Because she doesn't work for him.
And
But
they
she
did a lot
might
of-
not survive, I think, the end of this season.
They
I think
did-
Davos could kill her.
Yeah, they
I
did a
think
lot
he's
of
definitely
they
gonna
did a
do
lot of good signposting of like John could die, because Melisandre just goes, "Yeah, you might die tomorrow." Like, I'm just telling you.
Maybe you're
And-
just maybe
I'm
maybe
exhausted.
this was your role.
yeah,
This
four
was it.
to die tomorrow. I thought that was a good idea.
We need to bring you back to that
So,
tomorrow.
what is going to happen between Davos and Melisandre?
Okay, so let me just jump in there for two things. One is the line that I actually loved was at the very end of that.
No, I know.
interaction,
the
right?
God's line? Right?
Yeah, and where he says, "What kind of a god would do that?" And she says, "The one we've got."
Right.
Yeah, which is the same as his approach to
Right,
the army.
which is great. So Melisandre is one of the very few characters who has actually learned her lesson. Don't be overconfident.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she was so confident that the Lord of the Light had picked Stannis, and then oops, and then they burned that poor kid alive, and they did all these horrible things, and she has the vagina demon and all that stuff, and nonetheless, she was wrong. So now she's like, "Hey, I brought you back to life," which is just simply the most amazing thing that has happened in my 1,000 years of living.
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless, I have no fucking idea what's going to happen. You know why? Because this isn't Lord of the Rings. This is Game of Thrones.
One way they could have.
This is real.
You know
Lord
what's
of the Rings has been thrown under a pile of corpses on the show
They,
today.
the thing is, they have a burnt pyre left over from sacrificing, Shireen. This is sign language for Shireen. But they cleaned up all the bodies after the previous battle. I think it would have been kind of boss to have a bunch of skeletons on this battlefield that there was just a battle on.
But that was their camp. That wasn't the battlefield.
That was their camp.
That was a
there?
camp
Yeah,
where they
that's where
burned,
they
and then
camped.
they
They
went
burned her
to
at the
battle.
camp,
Yeah.
and then they went to battle.
Either way,
there
when
should have
they
been-
get onto the battlefield, it would have been pretty boss if there was like just skeletons kind
Yeah,
of
if like we
hanging.
saw
cool, yeah.
Stannis
Like, just- this is
like
where-
leaning against the tree.
That would be good.
I thought
like
that
you
was,
walk by a headless skeleton and be
We
like,
might
wonder
see
who that
that.
was.
Yeah.
We might end up seeing it.
So now back to Melisandre and Davos. So you shouldn't kill Melisandre. She brings people back to life,
Right.
including the leader of your army,
Yeah.
right? And so that is an incredibly powerful weapon. That's like killing one of your dragons. But he really, really wants to kill her.
He might,
And he
yeah.
probably will.
Well,
He
yeah,
might.
but he's
He
a
might.
smart guy, so he may well recognize that that's. But any idea
he
that
already said that it was Stannis' demons that killed Stannis.
Yeah.
And maybe he just lumps this all on Stannis for being weak. And yes, Melisandre
Maybe.
was the one who told him to do it.
But Stannis did it.
as
Stannis did
Stannis,
it.
you have to go.
So maybe
All
it
right,
might
here
just
you
be
go.
like, I'm done trusting men like Stannis. I'm done. Like I got it. You have this magic, and I've
Maybe.
seen it. But it might just, he might be done. But yeah,
he
but
gives
that
me-
is Game of Thrones. You generally cut people's heads off.
So,
You know, that's where you go.
Oh.
And then
Or you shoot him in the eye.
And then I wanted to say one more thing about the pile of bodies. It reminded me of the speech, and I went back and rewatched it. You know what that pile of bodies is? That's the ladder of chaos for Littlefinger. Remember that conversation he had with Varys?
The climb.
Chaos is not a pit, it is a ladder.
Right.
And how you climb that ladder if you want to. And they literally had like a ladder of dead bodies of chaos that Littlefinger climbed to become the most powerful man in the North.
Yeah. Yeah, one last little
God.
nitpick, and then the final thing I want to say about the battle, because I know we have to talk about Daenerys and all that. The little nitpick is, as great as so many parts of that were, and I understand that this is not supposed to be like the end of the world battle of all countries against the Dark Lord, where you have 100,000 people on each side, but I do feel like while they had an epic number of extras, it's apparently one of the largest battle scenes ever filmed for TV, the Jon's side still had too few people, especially at the end when they show those archers and Davos runs out. He's got like 5 people with him, it feels like. So, and the only reason that matters is if this is going to be the battle where we're going to show how brutal war is, and we're going to literally have people crawling over mountains of the dead, it's harder to sell that you can generate mountains of the dead when one side is as small as it was. But that nitpick aside, this was a movie-level battle scene, better than most movies. They did an amazing job.
But they were archers, maybe.
That's true, but even the number of guys on their side that ran in, it wasn't that many. It was literally hundreds.
I think they're saying something about a world where the guy with a 6,000-man army is the guy with the baddest army and to be feared. Like that. Those are tiny numbers. These are tiny numbers determining the future and the power distribution of a huge region.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's how it used to be.
I guess, I don't know. This time never actually existed. So,
Well,
The last thing I'll say about the
if you
battle.
say so.
The last thing I'll say, the thing about the battle when they had all the Stark people flanked and they were going in, 2 things. 1, someone had to decide what sound they make when they're stepping forward. Ooh, ooh, ooh. No, I'm thinking more like a ha, ha, ha. Definitely not that one. And then from the perspective of the people in the middle, all I was thinking was, shut down all the garbage smashes on the detention level. Shut down all the garbage smashes from Star Wars, just when they're
They should just put a log between the 2 shields on each side.
I thought they were crushing them like the trash compactor. I did. And
They basically were, yeah.
But that was a great shot from above. They had 2 great helicopter shots.
And you're right, there's a very similar
or
shot.
CGI shots. I don't know if they were actually a helicopter.
There's a very similar shot in Lord of the Rings where just like they're all surrounded outside the final gate that is just not as cool as what we saw.
But also when the Knights of the Vale came
blurry
through,
in
the
CGI.
bowling ball effect they had. I mean, it was just like those horses came in and it just...
Yeah. Well, you realize it's like a 600-pound creature going 40 miles per hour. You don't matter to it. It's just going to run right through
legs
you.
are pencils.
I know it was done for a plot point, but I'm going to pretend that it's real and say Jon Snow and, again, Davos, not that great commanders. If you're surrounded like that, excuse me, you cannot sit around and wait to get crunched.
Turn to one side and go.
You have to attack one side mercilessly.
Did they not
They tried
see
in limited ways a couple times. Like even the giant just couldn't get
when the
through
giant
it.
is there, that's your tip of the spear. Go, go, go. Everybody get behind the giant. We must break that. If we don't break that, we're all going to die.
It's like they didn't see Saving Private Ryan. We've got to get off this beach.
Yeah.
I know Dog 1 isn't open, but we have got to get off this beach.
Yeah. Although I love that this is the tactic they use because that is the shield wall with pikes behind it. That, aside from cavalry, was a dominant form of warfare for a long time. That's how like the Roman Empire, one of the reasons they became so big was mastering that sort of.
So I just think we'll move on to Daenerys in 10 seconds. But it is like Jon, right, incredibly brave, noble, and could be a great leader with an excellent hand, right? Because he would be just, right?
And wise.
And he can be tough. We've learned he can be tough. But he's not a global thinker at all.
You know who he reminds me of is his uncle, Ned Stark.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. He is
His uncle.
His uncle. He's like Uncle Ned.
Uncle Ned.
Right, really good guy. Would be a great dad.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But,
Teach you how to fight.
Before we go to
with his
Daenerys,
tongue.
we do have to talk about the dogs, obviously. So the ending of Ramsay
yes,
Bolton.
of course, right.
And so, again, I feel like this is one of the things that, like, in my inner core makes me wonder if I'm a bad guy. Let's not go as far as bad guy, because I fancy myself a Varys that I have the interest of the realm at heart, but not a true liberal at heart, because I loved the dog eating his face off.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Jon Snow beating him to a pulp, But then when I realized that Ramsay Bolton was kind of enjoying it,
Right.
I was like, no, let's have a different ending for him. I thought Sansa might chop his head off. Like, he might have gotten off, Sansa gets the sword, chops his head off.
That's what I thought.
No, but I thought about pausing and like
Thinking about it?
Before it
like,
happened.
no, as the dog was about to, like to try to savor the moment.
Like the
I
dog
didn't
was.
I wasn't just like, hey, I'm okay with it. I enjoyed it.
I actually
so
thought
good.
briefly, like what you said about overconfidence and everything. Like he knew he was gonna die. He fires the arrows. He kills the giant. He's getting beat up. And then when Jon like stops and he looks at Sansa, all I could think because of a couple of seasons ago was, no, not with Ramsay. He could pull a dagger out of his
Yeah,
side or
of
something.
course,
He
of
could
course.
stab you. He could stab Sansa. I thought Sansa could die while executing him.
Yeah, I was. Then maybe I'm the only one. Maybe I'm super cruel. Because when he was tied up, all I was thinking about Ramsay was cut off his dick,
I was thinking cut off his dick.
slice his weenie off.
I was hoping they'd have a shot of the
Start there.
dog biting his crotch. That's what I was hoping
but
for.
remember, he said earlier, I don't know what they'll eat first,
That's- yeah.
your balls or your eyes, when he was
Right.
talking about his hungry dogs. By the way, since I rewound
Turns
to
out
that
it's
scene,
the eyes.
It's the,
it's the
Yeah.
face first.
it's the mouth area.
Yeah, I did catch one little screw up because I rewound. Sansa had already ridden off when he said, I haven't fed my dogs for 7 days. Later, she says, we already know you didn't feed your dogs for 7
wow.
days.
Oh.
So it's a tiny, tiny little error.
Tormund told her,
That's a good
delete the
catch.
scene.
I like catches
Yeah.
like that. That's a-
Yeah.
It was, you know, I don't like those scenes because I think Ramsay has been bad PR for dogs. And that's that's why I'm against it. Like, dogs don't eat people's faces. even
After
if they,
7 days?
They don't eat people. I don't.
Here's what
They're not-
happened.
But that's Ramsay's dogs.
I
You
guess-
train
I
your
got you.
dogs to be good guys because you're a good lib. He
Kilo.
trains his
I have
dogs
some
to be
science.
Ramsay Bolton.
I have some science as to why the dogs started to eat him. It was when he first got afraid, because for those who've seen Jerry Maguire, dogs and bees can smell fear.
That's right. Dogs can smell. That's right.
And that's science from
That is science from
Ray.
Cameron Crowe.
I can't. It must be noted that though his one pretty decent revenge, Ramsay Bolton's was, he said, "It's too late. I'm already a piece of you, right? I'm already inside you," and he's right because she did
She's
what
doing-
he would have done.
Yeah.
She's doing what he would have done.
I think that was a
and so-
reference to the baby, but
No, I hear you, but
yeah.
it was as always with Game of Thrones, probably multi-layered, right? And so, you know, Jon Snow has that moment where he pulls back because he is not Ramsay Bolton, but Sansa has become Ramsay Bolton to some degree, and therefore, like me, enjoyed the dogs eating his face off.
You know, there's a obviously the right thing to do is you know, he stands trial. You know, I mean, whatever. You know.
Was he an ass? Was he a shit? Was he a shit? Okay, he was a shit. We've all determined.
But it's like, you know, it's battle, and so you like if they were going to do something cruel to him, it did need to happen quickly. Like you can't give yourself 72 hours. Like
Yeah.
after 72 hours or 48 hours, you got to behave civilly.
Yeah, but John's proven that in the past he can like pass a judgment, carry it out. Like when what's his name?
he killed
He was
the
about
kid.
to send the kid and the
Jonas Slint.
the bald guy
right,
who
yeah,
was
right.
supposed to be sent out. He's just like, all right, you didn't want to go where I told you to go, so you're going to die now.
Right.
yeah.
And so he's capable of doing that. And you're right that was a Bolton thing to do and not a Stark thing to do. Because if it was a Stark thing to do, then Sansa or Jon would have had to literally cut his head off with a sword.
Or yeah, or they would have hung him, right? Or they would have cut his head off. They would have done it
Flayed him.
the way they're supposed. Not right. John would not have approved of the
Who
cruelty. of that.
was flayed? Who did they flay up there?
I know. That's
They're
just
like,
like their
sorry, this is really awkward. We have a battle tomorrow, and someone's got to be flayed.
We just think it would look really cool if there were a few flayed people.
Yeah, so first volunteers. We'll do volunteers first. If not, we're going to draw the worst straws.
Have I
speaking-
mentioned you'll be upside down?
Speaking
You'll
of
be
the
famous.
manner of
But I'm
killing
not gonna
people,
say
that was a great scene there. Of course, I'm sure you loved it, Cenk, with the slavers. You know, and that moment of like, oh, I'm sorry, were we not clear? We're negotiating in terms of your surrender.
Oh, of course.
So
That's
good.
the number one line
line
I
of shit,
had.
right, yeah.
There must have been a miscommunication.
Yeah.
we came to negotiate your surrender.
So good.
Oh, I love that. That's the line I want to use in my life. I mean, there's already been literally like a dozen lines in Game of Thrones history that I not only want to use, but have used on the show endlessly. But I wish that God would give me the Lord of the Light or the Seven Gods or the old gods would give me a moment where I get to say to someone, "Oh, I'm sorry, there was a miscommunication. We're here to negotiate your surrender."
Well, someday we're gonna have a meeting between you and MSNBC. I assume the third line would probably be Dracarys.
Of course.
Oh, that felt good. I mean, that's not as good as the Nemebitas from a couple of seasons ago, but
What
it was
was the
pretty dope.
Nemebitas?
That's when she gives the speech about, I'm going to set free all of your slaves, and then she says Nemebitas. They start firing, but it's not actual to do damage. It's just filled up with the chains of the slaves they freed.
That's dope.
That was a great moment.
Yeah.
So
Dracarys is good
Dracarys, I looked it up, means dragonfire, and that is the command she gives. Okay.
Which she
Look it
used
up where?
all the time.
on a wiki.
On the internet.
That's the
on
line
internet.
that she used when
It's
she
not a
took
real
control of the Unsullied.
So therefore, the translation isn't real either. But I hear you.
No, it is actually a real language.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to know what
It
their
has a
translation-
vocabulary. He made a vocabulary. That and
Dracarys
Dothraki.
War
Actually, it's a real.
is-
I interviewed that guy who
How
made
is
the
it a real
languages.
language? It's cool that they made it up, but it's a.
What makes it a real language? It has vocabulary,
words are
grammatical
made up.
structure. You
All
can conjugate
words
All
are
words
verbs.
are made up. No one speaks it. It's fake. It's designed for
Okay,
television.
here's what it's
No,
not. It's not
English
in
is
Star
made up.
Trek where they just make up a word that they need. He actually has produced a
No,
language.
that's
It's
actually,
new.
you're totally wrong. Klingon is also a real language.
No, I'm not talking about Klingon. I'm talking about if they need to make up a chronoton particle. That's not tied into anything else. Okay, that
Okay, all right.
particular
we got,
example is.
we got
No, I'm
way
going to talk
too
about Star
many-
Trek a little
we're
bit.
way-
So on Star Trek Voyager, no.
No, John. You
Okay.
know nothing, John Iadarola.
So that's the other line that I'll be using from now on the Young Turks. When I want to unleash something, Dracarys.
Dracarys, it's not. It just means go.
Yeah, or fire.
Right.
We
fine.
need a
Launch.
shot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
wolf from Wolfpack breathing fire.
Oh,
That's
wow.
the ultimate intimidating animal. A fire-breathing wolf.
So wait, there's a lot that happened in Meereen from the very beginning. I love that she gets back and is like, ugh, things are pretty rough here. And he's like, actually, no, it could be way worse. And he's right. It could be
Yeah,
way,
and she's
way, way
smart, and
worse.
I read somewhere that we're supposed to wonder whether because he had to talk her out of burning their cities.
Right.
Right. But she really agreed with him right away. I mean, she's a very open mind. Yes, it was a dangerous thought that she was going to burn the cities, and a cruel thought because that, as we know, that's carpet bombing that kills women and children. Right.
And carpets.
But she said, and does horrible permanent damage to some of the finest carpets. But she was open to it. He said things could be where we did this, and she's right away in there. She's like, okay,
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Like I like that. And he was like, oh, I didn't know. I wasn't even really selling it.
And I like the moment where Tyrion, who has been so smart and so right all along, is so obviously wrong that he's like, what now? You've come in a bit of a bad moment.
It was really great. We had a bake sale
scared.
yesterday. Just today is pretty rough.
I just wish they just clarified a little bit more on Tyrion saying, I've got a better idea, right before they go talk to the slavers. I think that part of his better idea was, let's burn a bunch of their ships, but not all their ships, because we'd like to keep some of their ships.
I think we got all that. I got all that.
I got it too, but I didn't get it. I wish it was just a little clearer.
I think they left it that ambiguous so that when they start the scene negotiating with the slavers, you don't know it.
That's right.
No, I
lot
know.
of
I
what's
wanted
gonna
to
happen,
clarity
but I get it.
afterwards.
Especially because when they start saying, okay, you can leave.
That's right. That was part of it.
That could have theoretically been the thing. Okay, we give it up. Now we finally take Westeros.
Right.
There was some chance.
And the go back, and he said we're going to kill 2 of these guys, or one or 2. Well, we don't know. He might have that, but just might have been. We don't know how it worked
It might
out.
have
The
been
2
an
made
audible.
sense.
Yeah, it
Might
was
have
an
been
audible, yeah.
You leave at least one. We're gonna leave it up to you. But no, clearly.
He's like, Omaha.
Yeah.
But we know mostly what he said was, we don't burn cities to the ground.
Yeah.
And that was all part of this broad theme of, this is a new generation. We came from monsters. We're not going to behave like monsters. We're not going to behave like Tywin and the Mad King and whatever.
The Frey.
Leo Greyjoy.
Yeah, and so which then brings
the
us to
Greyjoy.
the Greyjoys. And but
came out of
raping and
nowhere.
pillaging, that's what we do.
That's
right?
a part that I don't fully buy they're going to stop doing.
Maybe not.
Yeah,
maybe
like,
not. And
they're
then
They're
that'll
like,
be-
so
then
you
that'll
mean we
be
just
a
have to
betrayal.
say we'll stop right now? Oh, okay. All right.
then-
we'll
but
see your dragons and we kind
So
of
we'll
saw your
see. There
dragons
was a
action.
suggestion there that I want to start shaking like that.
I know.
Yeah.
I was waiting for them to just start going.
Who else does that? Somebody else does that. It's
Yeah,
such
that
a
is.
Cool show.
But I want to.
Vikings.
But I think she means it. I think that there's nobility in Yara and Theon, and when you generally, because Theon again took rehabilitation. He committed this barbarous act. He burned 2 totally innocent boys at the stake, and
Killed the blacksmith.
And they yelled
right,
at him
yeah,
for it
that's right.
at home. They were like, "What the fuck were you doing?"
Right. So but he's come around. I mean, it took horrible things happening to him to come around, but he nods, and then Tyrion nods. They both gave, they're the seconds, and they both gave like, it's a good deal. Yeah. And we know Tyrion's a man of his word, and I think Theon is now too. He might be the most ethical person out there now.
Yeah.
I actually think that he is, like, they're making such a big deal of the fact that he burned 2 boys alive. But so many horrific things have happened at such a larger scale that I don't know why we're stuck on that.
Well, because
bad,
which is really, of course, don't get me wrong, we're talking about Game of Thrones, not real life.
You don't get
I don't
one.
actually want anybody's face eaten off in real life, and I don't,
because
It's also
as
so
we know, because
strategically
killing
stupid.
1,000 people was unimaginable. Genocide is hard for us to get our head around. The direct ordered murder of 2 innocent people is much
who you
more,
know is innocent.
who you know is in it. That's much more relatable. There is no tactical move there. I mean, it was just a. But again, so he is like what's his name? Like Al Swearingen, like Ian McShane. Although we just got him for this brief moment, and maybe the Hound, like people who have done who've done imaginable things and are now different people. The Hound is still prepared to kill Jaime, although Jaime keeps going back and forth. We don't know where those allegiances lie. But Theon seems like like Ian McShane. I've done this, and I'm not. We're done acting this way.
With the one thing I would worry about, though, is I think we have this nice view of Yara because she's helping out her brother. Like, she's devoted to her brother because of the suffering he's been through, but she was also kind of a dick to him early on. Other than that, I have no reason to believe that she's an honorable person. Her entire life has been raiding and reaving and pillaging. That's why she's so respected, is because she was killing people like all the other Ironborn.
She's going to have a very time selling this to the Ironborn. Great news. We're independent. There's a catch.
Yeah. We're going to go to farming now.
Right.
And they'd be like, we knew we were right in voting for the goddamn uncle.
Right. Look, you get a woman in, she's soft, she doesn't want to.
But I don't quite believe her either, but I don't think that's that relevant, because that will happen in the sequels, and we'll find out about it. But my favorite moment with Yara and Daenerys was when she's like, now you don't want to marry me, do you? And she's like, hell.
I'm not ruling it out.
But Daenerys loves this stuff about
she does like her, yeah.
Wow. It was sexy.
It was.
Yeah.
It was good.
My girlfriend was like, I'd watch the shit out of that.
Yeah, I mean, they hit her soft spot. I mean, that whole, hey, let the women rule, yada yada.
What was the other dragons getting out when Dragon the Dragon was flying over, and then did we see the other?
They burned their way out. Yeah. You saw them
Just
break the stone.
I think more
think
of
that
that,
they
like,
knew.
I know it's the time, something in my bones. The same way that, like, Drogon knows to just show up when Daenerys
they have
needs
some
it.
kind of link.
Right, because now we see that also
Something.
all of a sudden she's way more in control. She summoned that dragon telepathically to fly down next to her, growl at these guys, don't kill them, don't.
Yeah, they have some kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
She's totally trained her dragon.
Right, she's trained.
In the battle,
Which that movie, by the way, How to Train Your Dragon, ruined this for me a little bit, because I keep thinking about it. Every time she gets on the dragon, I'm like, oh, it's like a cartoon, you know?
Yeah, she should have a harness so she can control.
Yeah.
I had envisioned that they were just going to sweep across the fleet, burning the whole thing down. And so I was initially disappointed when it's basically them blowing up one ship. But it is a nice demonstration of their power. It plays into the fact that she's thinking strategically rather than just blowing up all the ships. She wants to use them. They do a nice shot of people on other ships jumping out of the ships, which makes sense. And the fact that they explode this ship. They show the water boiling out from under it.
So good.
That was a good scene.
I loved that. I love the dudes just looking up going like, fuck.
Yeah. Also, it's like they do that shot of like the flame sweeping over people. And again and again and again, the guy's like, I'm already on fire.
Napalm.
Stop blowing me up.
So two last things for me on the Masters. One, circling back to their overconfidence. She has dragons. How do you not have a plan B for the dragons?
I think they thought that they were still like this. I don't think that they
was the
respected that
last
those are
time
big
that dude saw
dragons.
her
Yeah,
dragon.
but
Also, they started the attack. She was gone too.
No, I hear all of that, but at some point she could come back with the dragons. The dragons could be larger. Here's who would have had plan C, D, and E, Littlefinger.
Yeah, I know, but
He wouldn't have
Dragon
been like,
heart.
don't worry about the dragons. Let's just walk in there.
they're idiots. You know they're idiots because they have mascara on.
That was my second point.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it last night when I did the live post on Facebook.com/whattheflick. If you want anyone to seem like they're bad guys and rich, put mascara around their eyes.
Or
Like,
in a band.
You know, like Hunger Games.
Right, exactly.
You know, Hunger Games, Game of Thrones. I think even in Alexander.
Maybe Demolition Man.
Right. Especially if they're like
love that movie.
Persian-like. You put the mascara around their eyes, make them
300.
nobility, and you're like, oh, these guys are going to get roasted.
Yeah, they're
These guys
done.
got it coming.
Done.
Yeah.
I like, by the way, that this is the Dragon show with Dragon the Dragon, but then also, let's let the Dothraki kill like 5 of the bad guys.
Yeah,
they
that was
sweep
like-
in 100,000 on 6.
Oh, and Dario Naharis, if you rewatch like him running at them, I think he's just yelling, "Fuck yeah!" Like because it definitely starts with an F, and he has another word after, and he's just so happy, and then just
He's
the
very
head.
happy.
You want to see like the guy who was like crouched just out of frame with the head as he rides over, just kind of throwing it so that it flies up, you know, to get the headshot.
Yeah, that's the. It's nice to see the end of the Sons of the Harpy. No.
Yeah.
And it gives you that full feeling of, all right, we saw the establishing shot from above of a lot of ships, plus there's 100 more coming. And then we have this Dothraki horde who I can't wait to see them with their, seasick bags just being like, when do we get to Westeros? Bah.
I hope that the last shot is literally their fleet going to sea. Like how we had that shot of Arya a few seasons ago. I hope it's the Dothraki and the Unsullied on the ships, closing shot, they're going to Westeros.
How are they going to get along, the Unsullied and the Dothraki? Because the others, some have no balls and the other have the biggest balls, like bred to have giant balls.
Yeah, but the
a good point.
Ironborn and the Dothraki are going to have a great time.
Yeah.
If
They
they
probably
don't all murder each other on the ships first.
That is going to be crazy.
Right. So now let's just set this up. Lannisters are greatly diminished. There's almost no one left in the north. The Tyrells are somewhat diminished. They have lost.
But they have there's a
big
long
army, I
game
think.
going there that we don't.
The Dorns
fully-
are a mess now. Dorne is a mess now. With
I wonder if we're gonna get any.
But their
Dorns
army
in
is
season 2.
undamaged.
Undamaged,
They have their
right.
full army.
But we don't know who they're loyal to.
Is
Yeah, we
that
don't know.
where, what's his name?
Is that where
Varys
Varys
is
was going, maybe? I don't
Yeah, we
know.
don't know
I've
where
been wondering
Varys is
about
going,
that.
right?
So certainly the Seven Kingdoms have seen better days.
Right.
There's been a lot of damage inflicted there, and it's fairly chaotic, just like Littlefinger wants it. And then here she comes. Daenerys comes with 3 dragons, fully trained, fully grown, the Unsullied, the Dothrakis, and the Ironborn. Jesus Lord.
and who
some
knows?
of the Ironborn.
And maybe all the Ironborn when
Euron?
when Uncle Euron gets there, and then they make this deal and they got the dragons and Yara will say, hey, no harm, no foul. We're gonna kill him. Got to kill a couple of uncles. And the rest of you, let's go. Come aboard.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
That is a hell of an army to do.
But
That
we
is- I mean,
can't
yeah.
do that anymore. But we can't pillage anymore. And
Right.
how many people are on a ship? 100. So.
But it is. But you can. But
I mean,
selling-
100. So now you have that's 1,000 Ironborn max that are
Again,
on
but
ships.
you have. I bet they come along because although yes, they can't reap, rape, or
Ravage?
or raid, or ravage. The 4 R's.
Yeah.
100,000.
They're free.
Yeah, or renovate.
Like they're getting full freedom. You
and
know.
that's their main thing.
Yeah, right. So no more, and that
And they'll serve as privateers and everything. So I mean, so I don't know about the Varys thing, but we're also.
several sides. I don't know what the hell that means.
What's that?
You're like, oh, they can serve as privateers.
Well, they'll be her navy. It's still important. Anyway, but we've got the Varys thing, but also for this last episode, we also have to figure out what was it that
Cersei.
Qyburn
Yeah, it's Cersei.
and Cersei, what's their plot? Because they have something going on.
It's the dragon, whatever it is. What's it called? The
wildfire, you think?
It's wildfire.
You think she's going to threaten to burn the whole place down?
She's going to threaten to burn
Or
the whole
maybe
place down.
actually burn the whole place down.
Yeah, it's
Why
wildfire.
not? You don't need King's Landing anymore.
But we heard it was referenced. But we know that that Daenerys' dad had it ready to go. And,
We had the flashbacks with
right?
Bran.
Yeah. It's-
Maybe.
That's Bran
They
saw
did
it.
just bring it up this episode. So.
That's what it is. It's a weapon, and that's Cersei's. That's
hadn't thought
That's
of
the
that at
hand
all.
she's going to play.
She always talked about leaving everything as ash and no one else matters.
Yeah, she's gonna.
And she's
burn
going to
it
die
all.
herself. You think there'll be a
She
long
was
shot
willing
of her
to
burning
kill
up
her
in a
son
wildfire?
when people were coming into the keep. She was willing to kill
Will
everybody.
they burn down King's Landing?
No,
It's gonna be exciting.
That's good.
Sure.
guys.
Will Tyrion have to save it again? Although they're not but she's ready with the what's it called, dragon?
Wildfire.
Wildfire now. Like they gotta wait for the Ironborn to get here, settle that score, sail to Westeros. I mean, like
That's true.
they're not coming to the rescue yet.
Wait,
they
wait.
have-
Can I make one more? This is the last thing I want to say.
Pass, maybe.
I just love that. Like maybe you'd be into this sort of thing, but the fact that both of you are talking about wildfire and how dragons are important and the Knights of the Vale, I'm just so happy right now because it's so good. Well,
And
if you
they
have the
did a great
cavalry from the
job.
Vale,
It
and then
was-
the elves come up there.
But it's like a drug dealer, right? Over time, they just slowly gave you a little bit of the magic. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, hey, welcome here, dragons, and this. It's
Yeah,
just
'cause
like,
they still-
oh no. They literally go out of their way to say, like, all that weird, like, wizardry shit is thousands of years ago if it happened at all.
They
So
almost
you're-
lost me on two parts. Not the dragons, the vagina monster,
Grenades.
and the grenades from the little folks,
Yeah.
the children of the
Yeah.
corn.
I like the
Right.
vagina monster. I want to
I
see
love the
those.
vagina
But
monster.
you're right.
Me
But
too.
you're right.
It's
It
like
was
so
the
much.
incrementalism of like so that they didn't lose me.
I'm sure
and
you
in
guys
fact now
have
enjoy.
this too, because there's still people who I know would love the show, who love politics and who love good TV, right? And that's what this is, a show about politics, and it's great TV. But they're still like, ugh, I can't do it.
There's
So
a
you
few.
still have to go. You still get, no, it's not all about guys with capes and
Yeah.
magic.
I've
Like,
tried
it's
to
not-
tell people that about Battlestar Galactica. I know that you're going to say
Like,
it's
it's not-
sci-fi.
No, I know.
No, it's a politics, war,
I got
military,
it. I just know
government.
that show crumbled a little bit.
It did.
Yeah,
It did.
so-
It's not as good of a show.
But I hear you on Battlestar Galactica. People like it.
All right.
I think we're done.
One more episode.
I can't. It looks like I'm not here next week, so
What a nerd.
You should do a live one.
maybe I'll do a live one.
And I think it's called The Winds of Winter, I think is the name of last episode.
But I think it also has something to do with the wall. So I mean, they didn't preview the wall at all.
I think the wall's going down.
Yeah, I mean, clearly at the very end here, there'll be people at the wall, Daenerys coming in, the pincer move
Yeah.
that they'll have to re-explain to Tormund
Envelopment.
is coming to Westeros. So there'll be fire in the middle and then the pincers.
Yeah.
So that's apparently
Have you
episode
guys seen
10.
Tormund does a commercial where he's like in a
So good.
pool?
Would you like to travel the world? Oh, we do a great. It's like this weird Finnish
Yeah,
accent or
totally.
wherever
Yeah, I
he's
don't know
from.
what's
It's
happening.
he's like such a happy. He's like Flo
so-
from Priceline, or essentially.
Yeah, totally.
Flo
He's
from
such a-
Progressive.
He's in such a good mood.
Yeah, it's weird, and he's like really red.
Yeah, he's super red. All right, everybody, back next week. Thanks for watching.